Hey everybody, Michelle Frechette here with Post Status. Also, as most of you know, I'm also a Stellar WP. So I actually am on both sides of the questions and the answers this week because I certainly have experience on both sides. But I am joined by four people who are either veterans or newer to sponsoring WordCamps and also organizing WordCamps. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to share some of our experiences and even questions that we might have for each other and be able to share those with the WordPress community in general, because when I posted this question on Twitter, there was a lot of interest. So, and Taco said, hey, let's make it a panel. And I was like, that's a great idea. So thank you all for joining me. And I would like to just kind of briefly go around the room. I don't know why we call it a room. Go around the screen. That's just weird, right? And just say who you are, where you work, maybe your job title, where you work, and then the last WordCamp that you attended would be great. Maybe the next one you plan to be at. So I'm going to start with you, Taco, since I already named your name. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say ladies first, but all right, I'll do the honors. So hi, I'm Taco van Donschot. I'm with the Yoast team. I'm head of relations and in that capacity responsible for both customer support and our community team, which includes sponsoring. So yeah, been involved with sponsoring quite a few WordCamps over the last couple of years. My last WordCamp I attended was WordCamp Europe in Athens. Probably an answer you will hear more often. And the next one is going to be WordCamp US.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing you there for sure. Katie, introduce yourself, please.
I'm Katie Keith, co-founder and CEO at Barn2 Plugins and also co-host of the WP Product Tour podcast. The last WordCamp I went to was WCEU in Athens, and we were sponsors, and it was our first time sponsoring. And my next one will be WordCamp US this year.
Are you sponsoring WordCamp US?
No.
Okay, so attending. Wonderful.
Attending. Excellent. I thought about sponsoring, but our team is smaller in the US and it was twice the price as well, which put me off.
A little bit. I can understand that for sure. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we go as well. Lincoln, please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Lincoln Islam. I'm the founder of CodeRex, the company behind WP Funnels. We especially make WordPress plugins for marketing agencies. And I'm one of the organizers of WordCamp Asia, which was in last year. And my last WordCamp was WordCamp Europe, like many of you.
Very good. And Drew, introduce yourself.
For sure. I'm Drew Griswold. I'm the Director of Outbound Marketing at Stellar WP. I'm relatively new to the WordPress scene, but big into the event scene for the past 10 years or so. Slightly different style of events, but looking forward to getting some insights from you folks on WordCamps. My last one was also Athens for WordCamp EU, and we are in full-on planning mode for sponsoring WordCamp US coming up here in just a short while. So great to be here with all of you.
Thanks for being here. And my last WordCamp was WordCamp Montclair. So I was at WordCamp Europe with all of you, but my last WordCamp was WordCamp Montclair. My next one is also WordCamp US. So I'm sure I will see many people there. And I'm on Drew's team. So I will be there working with Drew for sure. So thank you for all being here. So we got a lot of questions in over Twitter. And so I thought we would take some time to kind of go through some of those questions. And my guess is we'll have some similar answers, but not all. So let's just dig right in. So the first question is from James Giroux. James says, how do you define KPIs for events in the WordPress ecosystem? And how do you make the business case to non-WordPress execs who own the budgets? How do you build trust with those execs who are new to the space so that momentum isn't disrupted? That's a big question. The KPIs, the ROIs, things like that. So who wants to go first on this one? Taco, you unmuted yourself, so maybe you have an answer already.
Well, yes and no. I'm currently in the search for some of the answers to these questions, but I've been in the lucky position for a very long time that the owners and founders of the company I work for knew all about community and were completely invested themselves, which made it really easy to justify, okay, we need to be at event XYZ and there were no questions asked. It was, okay, you think we should be there, we go there. We sponsor there, whatever. That's changed since Yoast was acquired about 2 years ago. And 2 years ago? Yeah, that's long. So what I'm struggling with now is how do I explain to exactly those non-WordPress people what the value of a WordCamp is, what the value of any event, even beyond WordCamps, really is for the company. So I'm really hoping that some of the others have the answer, because that will definitely shorten my search.
Excellent. Drew, what do you have to add to that?
I don't know if I could say that I have the answer, but I definitely have some things to say. I think the ever pervasive event professional struggle is justifying the budget when there's a lot of different ways to measure success with events of any type, particularly WordCamps. You know, there are the hard metrics. There's the quantitative metrics of like how many leads were generated, how much revenue was generated, how many contacts did we add to our list, things like that. But I think where there's a lot more value and where it gets a lot more difficult to probably convince folks is some of those qualitative benefits of being involved with events, relationship building, educating on different things. You know, for Stellar WP in particular, we're in an interesting situation where a lot of folks know about some of our products, but they haven't heard of some of our other products. So for us, it's relatively straightforward, where we're there to educate a community that we're closely tied in with about some of the products that they may not have heard of, and establish Stellar as an individual brand that people think of when they think of these products. So that's a little bit different. Our brand awareness is definitely a very valuable thing, but it's very difficult to measure. And I think establishing expectations for the folks that are holding the pocketbooks and saying, you know, there's qualitative benefits, but there's also a lot of quantitative benefits if you want. It's just about framing expectations, I think, is what it comes down to. And that's not necessarily an answer, or it's a very ethereal answer. But I think it is definitely a struggle that every event professional deals with.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And Katie, when I was talking with you and Matt on WP Product Talk, one of the things I said is that it really is about branding and brand awareness, because you don't necessarily tie ROI directly to your involvement of standing behind a table at a WordCamp. What was your experience at WordCamp Europe, and how would you agree or disagree with that sentiment?
Yeah, the measurable ROI is very difficult. We tried to do that by doing a 50% off sale, which we gave leaflets with discounts to everybody that we met. And we made a grand total of 0 from that. We literally did not have one sale from the code that we'd associated with WordCamp Europe. So that ROI, not good. Maybe long term, we did talk to quite a lot of agencies who are interested in using our plugins for their clients. That's we can't measure because they didn't purchase during the sale. But for me, the biggest ROI was the impact on the team. So we have about 17 team members all around the world, but there were 6 of us at WordCamp Europe because they're the ones that are nearest. And because we sponsored, we could really see the team coming together in a way that didn't happen last year when there were also 6 of us and we just attended. It kind of gave us a purpose together. It was amazing training for people with different roles in the team, because like a developer's role is not to directly talk to potential customers and tell them what we do, what we stand for. And they just rose to the challenge, and it was amazing. I did brief them beforehand and give them a bit of a crib sheet in case they were uncomfortable or anything, but it was amazing seeing them. And I think it really gave them a whole new perspective on what we do and who we're working for. So that was really interesting, and having a kind of a mutual place to hang out as well. Like often it's hard to find people, you know, in the huge WordCamps, and everyone would kind of gravitate to our stand and therefore spent more time together. So I could see a very clear impact on the team, which for me is a good ROI, because I spent like $4,000 or $5,000 in total on the sponsorship, which includes the swag and the stand itself. And if you think about what it would cost to replace a senior developer, for example, that's expensive. So if we do retain any of these people because of that added value they've got from it, then that is ROI for me. And of course, there's the branding thing. I think nobody could deny that our brand has become more well-known from sponsoring, because people were talking to us all day long for 2 days and reinforcing connections we already had. People were coming up to us that didn't know us, asking what we do. So we must have improved the branding, but I can't measure that.
It really is difficult to measure anything like that, for sure. Let me ask Lincoln, as an organizer, what kinds of things, I mean, obviously organizers don't make promises that you will, have this great ROI or that kind of thing. So how do you market the opportunity to do sponsorships, and how do you make those connections and help people make the decision to be a sponsor?
I would want to share my experience both as a sponsor, not an organizer, but sponsor. And I think it depends on the type of company you have when you want to organize a WordCamp. So let's say if you have a service type company, right? Company that provides services. So I used to do that same. So when I joined WordCamp as a sponsor, so I was looking to make connection with my target and potential clients, right? So my KPI was like making connections with the right people. No strict monetary value, right? So let's say, I know that I'm not going to get the straight amount of return of investment right away, but it happened that I did get return after, let's say, 4 years after coming back from the WordCamp. So we all know that it's not easy to calculate the immediate ROI. So that's service company. So you have your KPI defined before joining, and you know what you're going to expect out of the WordCamp. The second type of company is a product company. So for me, when I'm joining WordCamp as a sponsor, I'm talking about my company. So I try to define my KPI. So are we looking to get new talents? Are we looking to get partnerships? So we try to figure out a number. Okay, we'll try to talk with at least 10 potential partnership agencies that we can collaborate in future. So my success or return of investment that we did earlier depends on the meeting that we did on the WordCamp. And later on, maybe, as I said, it takes years to get the exact ROI. So yeah, for the service company, the return of investment can be leads that are generating. And for the product company, it can be partnership. It can be like you're getting more brand exposure, which is not countable, or maybe social media awareness. So as a sponsor, yeah, I think this is what we try to convince people of. So if you're a service company, when someone opt-in on the website, the sponsorship form, so we try to see what kind of business is this. So from my experience, we try to have a diverse of sponsors in the WordCamp, so that everybody gets something. So yeah, as an organizer, we try to focus on the brand awareness more than specific ROI.
I once was a representative for a sponsor at WordCamp Montreal. There were 10 sponsors, and the plugin that I was representing there was the only table that wasn't a hosting company. So it's interesting when you look at that too, like who has the money to do them. A lot of the times the hosting companies will send people. So if you can differentiate yourself, certainly there's opportunities for you in this market. I want to go to a question that Cameron Jones had asked, which is, do you sponsor to give back to the WordPress community for marketing purposes, or for both? So do you feel that WordCamp sponsorships are targeted at one group more than the other? And what do you think that WordCamps could offer that would make you consider sponsoring more? Drew, let's ask you that question first.
Yeah, I think it would be very disingenuous for me to claim that we sponsor WordCamps just for the sake of giving back to the community. That is certainly a huge benefit of it. Interacting with our community, part of the ROI conversation is talking to our customers, seeing what they do love about our products, what they don't love about our products. The amount of market research we get to do just by talking to some of the folks that use our products is a huge return. We do see noticeable increase in brand searches and brand awareness if we're tracking our searches on Google, things like that. And there are a lot of measurable results that make WordCamps or other events a potentially good investment. Being a company that contributes to the community obviously is a huge priority, but there's a lot of business value to being there as well. So I'm not going to claim that it's just 100% for warm and fuzzies.
How would you add to that, Taco? Because you've been doing this quite a while.
Yes, so it definitely is a bit of both. I think depending on where you are as a company, it's either more about giving back or it's more about marketing purposes, market research, as Drew said. I do think, and that's the latter question that Cameron asked, is what can we do better for sponsors? What would us make consider sponsoring more? Is at this moment, I think a lot of the sponsor packages around the world are almost exact copies of the same boring offering. And
Ooh.
I say that to get some response, but there is hardly any creativity in the sponsor teams for any of the events, both flagship events and local events. It's all about, you get a small logo, you get a bigger logo, you get a large logo. You can have your logo on the website, you can have your logo on a tweet, you can have your logo on a slide. And that's about it.
You can have a 2x4 table, you can have a 4x6 table, you can have a booth. Yeah.
Well, yes. And preferably we only let you know the size of the table 2 weeks before the event.
Exactly.
Sorry, minor annoyance here. And I think that we can do better. And doing better means that it becomes more attractive for the attendees of your WordCamp to visit sponsors or to interact with sponsors. And that automatically makes it more interesting for sponsors to join your event. I think one of the things that WordCamp Europe offered this time that I hadn't seen before but liked a lot is a short photo shoot. Bring your team to your booth. We'll have an official photographer from the event take your team picture. And I think that is really simple. It's not hard to organize that, but it's a nice bonus. It doesn't cause interaction with the audience, but it's already a first step of thinking outside that box that we've been in for so many years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Katie or Lincoln, do you have anything to add to this question? Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I'm a big believer in things that benefit the community and the person doing it, because I think in life, often people are motivated by mutual benefit and it doesn't have to be one or the other. So I would say, yes, we wouldn't have sponsored just as a charitable thing. It was a lot of work, regardless of the money. I spent weeks on it because I hadn't done it before. So I'd say that the community support aspect was a bonus, really. Yeah, I know what you mean, Taco, about some of the benefits of sponsoring not being very interesting. Like, I don't care if our logo's on some of these random places around the venue. I don't think that really has much impact on brand awareness. It would be nice to have other opportunities like priority in interviews or something on the official channels and that kind of thing, to do that. And like a link is okay, I suppose, but overall I just wanted a booth, so I went for the cheapest option that came with a booth, and that was my only priority. Nothing else was of interest. So I think people would be more inclined to sponsor if that was if there were more creative ways of enticing people in and benefiting them. But I've noticed that, so it's $2,500 dollars or euros, I don't know, to sponsor Europe, and it's $5,000 to sponsor US, and that seems to be a fairly extreme difference for a flagship WordCamp. I understand the local ones might be cheaper, but there it should be equivalent, Europe and US. In fact, I thought Europe was the biggest one in the world, so I was a bit shocked by the price, and that put me off, given that I was unable to financially calculate the ROI of Europe.
Yeah, no, let me make some really good points there. For sure. And I don't know that there's answers. And certainly when we put this out on for the community to consume, I'm sure people will have some ideas to contribute as well. I want to move on to swag and talk a little bit about swag, because for a couple of reasons, right? So attendees love swag. We like to put things in hands that will keep, so that they pick up a pen and they see our name, or I have a little notebook on my desk that says Barn 2 on it because I got it at WordCamp Europe. I have a fan that says Yoast on it. I have obviously a lot of Stellar swag because I work here, but what, I saw Katie asking prior to it, like, what makes good swag? What is good swag? And then we had some questions come in that were like, how do you know how much swag to bring? Mark Westgard is asking, and what type of swag has been the most effective? And then Donata Skillred wants to know, how do you even get your swag to the event? If you're not driving and putting it in the trunk of your car, which obviously you can't when you're crossing an ocean, for example, how do you even get it there? So Lincoln, I'm going to ask you that first. What kinds of swag do you think are the most effective, and how does one actually get it to a venue?
For the swags, without any doubt, the t-shirts. It's a very common thing among WordPress. And personally, I as a sponsor, I feel very good when I see someone is wearing our t-shirt, after a year of sponsoring a WordCamp. So, we could do something better than t-shirt, but t-shirt is something, we wear and go out. So we are getting both. Someone is getting their purpose served, and on the second side, you are getting your marketing and promotion done. On the swag shipping, I think back in 2019, when we were organizing WordCamp Asia for the first time, which was canceled for COVID. Okay, before telling that, I should say it depends on the organizers. If you're too nice and flexible, they have time to, receive the swags from all their sponsors all over the world. I mean, even though it's not easy, all this, especially in Bangladesh. So we have a really, strict customs. So if someone is sending something to you, they're going to go through a hell lot of, time and investment. So WordCamp Asia back in 2019, I think one of our organizers, local organizer, Nock, she was very nice, and she agreed to receive some of the swag from the sponsors. And later on, she was like literally messed up with all these boxes in the house, and she was, what I'm gonna do with all these things, I cannot throw them out, right? So it depends. Other organizer on the WordCamp chapter, if they're nice, you can ship it to them. The second thing is definitely if you have a team member in that zone, you can ship it to them. And the third option could be, which we have followed in the last year, is the event. Not all the WordCamp organizer team recruits an event, but if there is an event management firm working with the WordCamp, you can ship your swags to them, prior you go physically there.
And some hotels will actually allow you to ship things to yourself at the hotel. So for WordCamp Montclair last year, I had all of the Stellar swag shipped directly to the hotel. When I checked in, they said, hey, let me help you get that to your room. And I said, thank you. So there are definitely options as to how you can get it there, but most likely you're going to be finding a destination and shipping it directly.
Yeah, I
One
was
of
going
the-
to add to that real
ahead.
quick, Michelle.
Yeah,
I don't
please.
have nearly as many friends as all of you guys do in the WordPress community, so I don't have the luxury of shipping it to my friends all over. But the UPS store or DHL, hold for pickup. If you ship hold for pickup, UPS in the US is amazing. DHL internationally, very helpful. And you could just ship it to one of their other locations with hold for pickup on it, show up and do that. And then on the swag thing, I just wanted to mention, we've really tried to focus on products that have a little bit more utility than just something that's disposable. T-shirt's a great example because it turns people into a walking billboard. People aren't really inclined to just throw away a T-shirt. But I think where people have gotten really disillusioned is just the really cheap plastic pens or something that they're just going to throw away in 5 minutes, or a stress ball or something like that. We try to get products that have utility. At WordCamp Europe, it was like a little travel bag or something like that. WordCamp US will have something similar, but giving people a reason to hold on to it, keep it, and then have your logo show up at unassuming times to reinforce your brand value, right? So those are my 2 quick cents that I wanted to throw in there on top of that.
Absolutely. Something that I want to bring up on the tail of that is when somebody sees, when somebody's attending WordCamp, they can see how much sponsors paid to be in the position they are. So they know if they paid 5,000, 10,000, 250, whatever it is, whether it's a local camp or not. But I think sometimes people forget that sponsor didn't just pay $1,000 to have that table. They paid $1,000 to have the table and the space. They paid thousands of dollars, at least hundreds of, if not thousands of dollars, for the swag on that table. And then they paid somebody to be there. They paid somebody to the travel cost for somebody to be there and stay in a hotel while they're there. So if let's on average say, I'm going to ask you this one, Drew, because I know that you are keeping our budget and things, but and then everybody else can chime in, of course. But when you say that you're sponsoring $1,000, let's say local WordCamp, how much does that really cost in terms of like ballpark figure, budget wise?
If I'm just pulling numbers out of thin air, I'd say it's easily 4 times the cost of the sponsorship. I mean, it all depends on how many folks you want to send there. We typically have a rule where people don't do it by themselves. You have to go with someone else so that the booth is always properly attended, things like that. But when you're looking at 2 people, if we just pick Montclair, for example, if we want to send 2 people out to Montclair, New Jersey for a day, it's airfare, it's the hotel, it's the per diem, it's the costs of the little things that add up, it's the swag cost. And that really quickly can get to be a lot more than just the sponsorship fee cost. 4 times this fee is just what popped into my head, and I think like that might be a pretty fair, wild shot in the dark. But I would be curious what other people would say as their blind guess for how much the additional costs stack up.
I want to ask Katie, having done it for just the first time, was there that sticker shock when you started to add up all the additional costs of actually attending?
Yeah, with the swag, I wanted to do something good. I not rubbish plastic. I wanted to do something a bit environmentally friendly, and I had some quite strong views about the branding. I like even like a notebook. If you have one that the ring ones that you turn it over, well, your brand is gone as soon as they open it. Whereas the one on your desk, you kind of have to close each time. And it's only a fairly cheap one. But even that, I was trying to think, will they regularly see the brand? So that narrows it down. And so cost-wise, I spent 1,800 on the swag. But the total we spent on WordCamp in total is 13,000. So that's more than 4 times. But that includes 6 team members. We would have done all that anyway if we weren't sponsoring. Andy and I went for a week, so it includes our holiday as well. So, so the direct cost of sponsorship was $4,300. And in terms of shipping it, I decided I needed to see it. I needed to quality check it because I hadn't done this before. I was choosing a random company on the internet. And I'm really glad I had it sent to me, because there were quality problems. Things like yo-yos. I think it was your idea to do toys, wasn't it, Taco, on Twitter? So
Yes.
do something for the kids. So we did yo-yos, and they were like off center, half of them. So I had to return things and complain. And if I just had it sent to Athens, then I'd have got there and been really embarrassed to use it. So if you do this a lot and you know the company and trust them, then fine. But I think it was worth the extra effort to have it sent to me in Mallorca, Spain. And I got the weights of it all before I ordered it. And I worked out that it would fit into like a suitcase, like a 30-kilogram suitcase. So I paid for an extra suitcase and brought it with me. And I believe that was the right decision because of the quality issues.
Yeah, definitely. Taco, what do you have to add here?
Yeah, well, the quality thing sounds really familiar, especially with yo-yos. We messed that up completely once before, where there were super light, cheap plastic, and trust me, that doesn't work with a yo-yo. In terms of the cost, looking at the last WordCamp Europe, I think the 4 times is the optimistic guesstimate. Especially if you include time preparing, time spent creating the booth design, creating the swag design, all of that. So yeah, no, it definitely gets expensive fast. In terms of what swag works well, well, the type of swag that still gives me nightmares worked best, because all around the world people keep asking for stroopwafels,
And I
which
didn't
is
get any this year. Oh my
no,
goodness.
and there's a good reason, because edible goodies are probably the worst decision you can make. Especially those stroopwafels had a whole story to them. But long story short, a lot of venues do not allow edible goodies because you're either competing with their catering services, or you're offering something where they can't control ingredients and allergens and all of that. Or you're trying to ship edible goodies outside or into the European Union, which is a nightmare on its own. So whatever decision you make, stay away from edible goodies. If you want stroopwafels, come to the Netherlands and we'll happily get you fresh ones.
Turns out you can buy them on Amazon as well.
Absolutely, yes. As long as you find the Dalmans brand, you'll be fine.
Perfect.
And not affiliated. The other thing that really worked well for us in the past were the little Lego minifigs. That's also one of the types of swag that we still get questions for, like, hey, do you have any Legos with you? It worked really well, but as Katie said before, I'm environmentally friendly. Well, they're not easily thrown out because people keep playing with Legos forever.
I still have mine.
A lot of people regularly still show the old Legos. The thing is, they're crazy expensive, and that's another factor that you have to take into account. Is especially with the larger events where you're talking about volume, a couple of bucks per piece means a lot of money for a 2,000 people event.
It sure does. Absolutely.
Yeah, so and with that, what we typically do is take the expected number of attendees, and depending on the event and prior experience and how safe we want to be, we'll bring about a third to half the number of attendees in swag items.
That makes sense. And there are people who don't want to take swag because they only have a carry-on, and so they don't want to have to pack a bigger suitcase and things like that. So not everybody that's attending is going to take swag, for sure, and we understand that. But there are people who just really like things, right? And so they'll walk around, and having those things in their hand is absolutely beneficial.
Yes.
Lincoln, what did you have to add to this?
Before that, I want to tell Taco. Taco, there was a time when I used to think yours means Lego. I don't know.
That's fair.
It automatically came to my mind. Yeah, about the cost. We recently sponsored a WordCamp in Bangladesh. It's a local WordCamp. So what do you all see upfront? Except, my company is pretty big. We don't have a budgeting and everything. So what do you see the sponsor amount? But what's on the backstage is, accommodation, swags, your booth decoration and everything. So I should say, seeing my data, it normally the 4x the sponsor money. About the swags, I believe after t-shirt, water bottle is the second thing that people want to take and they want to use on their desk every day. So at least it has a better use because we drink water, and if the water bottle looks nice, something I should say blackish or something. So we want to have it on our desk and use it. What is the last question about the swag percentage? It's what is the safe percentage of swags someone should carry to WordCamp? From my experience, I should say 60% of the attendees should be safe zone. You're not hitting the lowest amount or the highest amount, but you don't want to carry back the swags that you're carrying to the WordCamp, right? So from my opinion, just my experience, so 60% would be a safe number.
I think it's funny when you're the person representing your company and people approach you so timidly, like, can I have one? And you're like, oh my gosh, just take it. I don't want to bring it home with me, right? So yeah. I didn't purchase it for me to know about my company. I purchased it for you to know about my company. We got a question from, I hope I say his name properly, Mohammed Syed Khan. And his question is it's a good question, and I'm going to ask Lincoln as an organizer first to address this, and then everybody else can kind of chime in. But his question is, I don't see many sponsors having their own speaker or panel participant in different talks at WordCamps. Would it be an interesting way to make the most of sponsoring an event, maybe a speaker slot? Just not talking about the product, but the problem they're trying to solve. So there's a lot of reasons why that is intriguing and a lot of reasons why that won't work. But from an organizer standpoint, Lincoln, can you address that question?
Yeah. So for selecting sponsor and selecting speaker, both are different, right? We have our internal process whom we are going to select. So if we talk about selecting a speaker, right, we want to have speaker who has a good topic, related to our audience. So even though it could be an option, but I think this might be a conflict of interest, right? So there's no rule, I guess, that sponsor cannot be a speaker. If you have good topic, if you have something related and exciting for audience, why not? But sponsoring WordCamp doesn't guarantee that you'll have a place for yourself on the camp.
Exactly.
Right? And there is no ultimate, guideline that we would be, giving a chance to the sponsor for speaking.
So, and I'm going to pose this question to all of you, and you can fight over who unmutes first. But do you, as a company, Taco's already unmuted, do you as a company encourage your employees who like to do public speaking? Do you encourage them to apply to speak if you're going to be sponsoring a WordCamp? So Taco, you first.
Yeah, so before answering that one, a little step back from a sponsor's perspective, having a paid sponsor slot definitely is interesting. Because the reach that you get from the stage is usually bigger than the biggest booth. So having a speaker is definitely extremely valuable to your brand. given that you have a good presentation, a good speaker, that you bring value to the event. What's interesting is that WordCamps are not allowed to offer paid speaker spots. And in that, we are probably unique in the conference space, because outside of WordCamps, outside of WordPress, I cannot recall a single event that doesn't offer something like that. So we are quite unique there. And the idea behind it is really good, because you want to prevent that those with the deepest pockets claim all the spots. But maybe it's time to reassess whether this is still the best rule for everyone, because what we're seeing is that also the sponsors are typically super knowledgeable in their own areas. And I would feel bad using my own company as an example, but taking Barn2 as an example, I think you have some amazing talent on your dev team, and it is super valuable to have them on a stage. And to the audience, it doesn't matter if that developer was picked from submitting a talk and then going through the whole blind selection process, being selected, or whether that spot was bought by the company, as long as it's adding the value to the event, to the attendees. However, guarding that is super hard, because Barn2, I would fully trust in doing that. There could be companies in our space that take the opportunity to make it a sales page that doesn't add significant value whatsoever. But especially for plugins that serve a specific niche, I think they are the experts on their area, where Patch Stack, for example, or Sucuri, or one of the other security brands, they are the experts on security. So having them on a stage is valuable to your event. But
Yep,
yeah, it's a trade-off.
Do you at Yoast encourage people to apply to speak?
Yes. Not nearly enough yet, but that's one of the programs that we're developing this year with the community team, to help more people become speakers at events.
Excellent. What about you, Katie? Have you encouraged people to apply to speak?
Yeah, we were even supposed to have a speaker at WordCamp Europe, but his visa was declined, so he couldn't come. He's in Iran, and we found out about a week before. So yeah, I would encourage sponsors to get their team, who are good public speakers, to submit an application to be a speaker to supplement the benefits of their sponsorship. And it's a separate process. You don't get any benefits because you're sponsoring, but you know, my guy's talk was accepted, and because it was genuinely useful and everything. And so I think that would really help. But I would be interested to see kind of maybe an additional track for sponsors to have talks, so that everybody knows these are not the independently selected talks. These are slots given to the sponsors where you can find out more about the sponsors. So I think maybe that would be less of a conflict of interest, because they're not taking over the other slots, and people know what they're signing up for when they go and watch these talks. So I'd be quite interested in that as an additional benefit of sponsorship.
That's a great idea. I actually like that a lot. Drew, you have unmuted. I know you have something to add. I love Zoom for that reason. It's like, you know who wants to say something because they unmute.
It's such a less embarrassing way of raising my hand. I was just going to sit here like this, but it's not really a good look. To echo what Katie and Taco said, I think it's a great idea for sure. I find myself becoming, I can slide towards being shamelessly promotional at lots of times. I don't think it's because I'm just a salesman at heart. It's because I'm pretty passionate about Stellar WP and our products and our people especially. But I think that's one of the benefits of encouraging exploring an avenue like paid speakers is you get some of the most passionate and knowledgeable folks in the WordPress space. At Stellar, we're very, very lucky where we have a lot of people deeply embedded in the community that happen to be speakers. They don't need encouragement to go out and apply to be speakers. We do encourage it, but people are naturally just involved in the community wanting to do it. And I think not just ones we're sponsoring. It's good practice to have people applying to WordCamp speak all over the place, even if we're not going to be a part of it. But I do love the idea of having a well-curated version of a paid speaking options, just making sure that it's monitored so it doesn't slide to a shamelessly promotional talk about how great Stellar WP is, right?
Exactly. We're closing in on our time. I want to ask another question that nobody else posed here, which is the additional benefits of sponsoring in the ability to meet people and recruit new talent through WordCamps. I joined Give WP in 2018 because in 2017 I made connections with them as a sponsor at 2 different events. And as a result, opened up communication for me to begin working with them. That would not have happened had they not been sponsoring and speaking, and I was also in attendance there. Have you ever had similar experiences? Do you attend with the opportunities, thinking about that opportunity for recruitment or mergers and acquisitions and all of those kinds of things? I'm not asking you to tip your hand and give us any, trade secrets, but generically, has that been an opportunity or a focus for you when attending WordCamps? And somebody unmute so I can call on you. Katie, I'll ask you as a new person sponsoring, was that on your mind at all at WordCamp Europe?
It was, because at the time we were looking for an SEO and marketing manager. I always intended to find a job board, but I never saw one. Normally there's a job board, isn't there?
There wasn't one there, from what I heard. I didn't see one. But there were all of these Yoast people walking around in Yoast t-shirts. Did you just kidding.
Do some poaching. I had one person not from Yoast come over because she'd seen the job on Twitter or something, wanted to know more, but generally it had very, very little impact in recruiting. But that was a marketing role, and the majority of people coming over were more like developers and so on. So I think probably if we'd been hiring a developer, we would have had a better chance of finding somebody that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
What about you,
seriously
Taco?
doubt that.
Okay.
Because and that's especially for the flagship WordCamps, because the people going to a flagship WordCamp are typically, not all of them, but typically sent there by their employer, which means that most people at that event will have a job that allows them to travel, which means they're not easy to poach. Local events, different story. Local WordCamps, I think it should be slightly easier, but especially for the flagships, poaching people there is probably hard.
Interesting,
So, yeah.
because some people pay for themselves to go, but I suppose that's
sure.
less common.
And the more expensive it is, the less likely they've paid their own way, I think, is the
Yes.
point. But
Yeah.
I even saw, I did see at least one booth, I can't remember who it was now, at WordCamp Europe, had a sign up that said they were hiring, so that if people were interested. And have you done or thought about that before, Taco? Have you done that with Yoast at all?
So the interesting thing is that pre-COVID, we were a very office-focused company. We had a few people remote, but that was our support team and some people working on WordPress core full-time, and that's about it. Now, over COVID and post-COVID, we've switched to a more hybrid model, which means it would make more sense for us to find people in other areas. But before, it would be just WordCamp the Netherlands, where we would have somewhat of a hiring mindset, because that was the only place where it made sense.
Absolutely. What about you, Lincoln?
I think one of the campaign that we did during WordCamps, it's like doing an exchange campaign. Like if someone is coming for swag, we ask them to share our campaign on Twitter or Facebook, where it says we are hiring. So even though we didn't get anyone instantly right at the spot, but it did give us result in later months. So yeah, I would say definitely it's possible, but not instantly.
That's pretty cool. So as we wrap up, I just want to give each of you an opportunity to share a thought about something that we didn't talk about or that you would want to expand on. And then we'll wrap it up when everybody's had an opportunity to do that. So Lincoln, you're still unmuted. I'm going to go with you first. What's something that you would still like to add to the conversation that we haven't talked about yet?
I'm not sure if it's going to be recorded, but I still want to disagree with Taco about paid speaker slots. Imagine there is an option to get a speaker slot that's paid. So all the big companies is going to come and have all the slots fulfilled. So definitely not something that I want to see. Even though I liked what Katie said, having a dedicated track for sponsors, so we know that all the sponsors are going to speak there. That's totally fine. Okay.
Excellent. Katie, how
Having
about
said
you?
that,
Oh, sorry. Did you have more to say?
yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, Katie, how about you?
I would say that before you sponsor, think about how you're going to describe your company, because you may never have done it before, saying it like in a sentence or two. And also, what point are you trying to put across? We have like 22 plugins, and so it's not that easy to decide what are we focusing on. Are we focusing on one product or multiple? And I'm not sure we got it right, but we had to think that through because it could become very confused. We're also not even clearly one thing. We're mostly WooCommerce plugins, but our best-selling plugin is not WooCommerce. So it was actually a challenge to think about how we present ourselves. So I'd say think about that and come up with a few kind of one-liners to give your team for when people come up and say, so what do you do?
And that's great advice. I love that. How about you, Drew?
I'm going to echo the perfecting the elevator pitch, and just to sing Katie's praises more, my last thing that I was going to put in is that blog post that Katie produced about sponsoring WordCamp EU for the first time was so incredibly informational. I'm not just saying that because there's a picture of me in it, although that was a benefit for me. But it was so transparent, it was so honest, and it was so educational that I highly recommend if anyone is considering sponsoring WordCamp for the first time. It is just such an excellent resource. I just wanted to give you props, Katie. It was just such an awesome blog post, and I was really impressed to see it. Even though I do it for a living, I was enthralled reading the blog post and seeing how the process was for you. So.
Oh,
We'll
thank you. Yeah, and everyone should read it to look at the picture of Drew staring very hard at a beer pump.
We will make sure
at a medieval themed bar in Athens. That's a conversation for another time.
Your favorite bar, yeah.
We'll put the link to that post in the show notes for this webinar as well. And Taco, how about you?
Yeah, so there's 1,000 things left to say because I don't think this is a topic that you can fully discuss in an hour. I would love to see more of the new companies, the smaller companies that are just emerging in our space or just entering the WordPress space to find their local events and play with sponsorships. I would also love to see more local companies who have a WordPress website sponsor their WordCamp and then go there to learn from people who've been in the space longer. So that's sort of a new category of sponsors where they don't have a direct sales pitch towards WordPress users, but they are a WordPress user themselves, and in that way help local events being organized. Because as the world around us is getting more expensive, we will need to find fresh sponsors to keep organizing our events because they're simply becoming more and more expensive, to the point where it is impossible to organize them without any local support. The other thing is calling upon creativity. And that is both on the organizing teams, but also on the sponsors to come up with your own thing, find something funny to do, find something that stands out, do something you haven't seen before, make it worth going to your booth, make that when people see your brand, they're like, oh, they had something amazing last year. I'm curious what they will offer this year. Get that creativity in your swag, in your activities, in the way you tell your story, and stand out in that way by offering an experience to the event.
Absolutely. And before I wrap it all up, I will say, as a pin collector and a sticker collector, never underestimate the value of a pin, because there are traders out there who are trading WAPU pins like myself. And yeah, they may not be everybody, but those pins can actually carry a lot of weight. And I have over 300 on the bulletin board that you can't see right now. And I think fondly on all of the ones that I've received from other people. So thank you all for your insights. I think there's a lot more that can be said. Maybe we'll do another one of these 6 months down the road or after WordCamp US and see how that goes. But Taco, Katie, Lincoln, Drew, thank you so much for joining me. And I appreciate all your time. And we'll see you all when you have an opportunity to comment on any comments that come through on the blog. Please feel free to interact with those. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.